5, 4, 3, 2.
Realtors, you're in the right spot.
We're going to do this together.
Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast.
These mentors showed me a map of success.
This is the place for real estate pros like you to get better at running your business, balancing your life, and having happy clients.
Do you know how powerful you are?
And now your host, Eric Thompson.
What's up, everyone? It's your good friend, Eric Thompson. It's the Leading Edge Podcast, episode number 64. I hope you're still liking the new intro. I sure like it a whole heck of a lot. Thank you so much for engaging this one. This one is called Scarcity versus Abundance. I'm inspired to make this one for you for two reasons. Number one is pretty simple. I know all of you, all my real estate friends, you have money goals. All right, there are aspirations you have related to money and wealth and abundance and income and all the things. That's why I'm making this, because this is going to help you out. The second reason I'm making this is that we just finished up inside of my mastermind called Alpha State. You've heard me talk about that before. We just finished up a month-long workshop all about money. So money and wealth and abundance and income and all the things. Guys, we did some amazing work. We really rolled up our sleeves. We looked at this close. People had some incredible ahas and big transformations. They're already seeing a big difference in all things related to money. What we said and what we know is that the more that we create, the better off the world is, right? So that the more abundance and wealth and income that we create, all that means is we've impacted the world in a really awesome way. And the people for sure immediately surrounding us get way better off, and also the world in general gets better, because all it means is we just created even more value, right? So that's also why I'm making this. So abundance and scarcity is for sure something that we talked about in that month-long workshop. By the way, that workshop was recorded. It's just sitting there in Alpha State. If you want to get access to it, go get access to it. All you got to do is go to alphastateclass.com, get signed up. You get all the things inside of Alpha State, including that workshop on money, if money's something that you want to optimize. Okay, here we go. Scarcity versus abundance. First things first, there is a massive difference. Please know this. I'm guessing you're going to agree with me. There is a massive difference between understanding something and believing something. All right? Wouldn't you agree? There's just a huge difference, especially when it relates to this concept of scarcity and abundance, because let's face it, this ain't the first time you've heard someone mention this, and I'm guessing that you get it like at an intellectual level, right? So your left brain is firing, and you can see it like from a super intellectual level that, oh yeah, I get it. I understand there are trillions and trillions of dollars in the world, and there's more than enough. And oh yeah, I get that. There's more than enough to go around. But do you believe it? All right. Do you actually believe it? And do you believe it all the way? All right. At the highest level that you could. We'll talk about some ways that we kind of hold back on this belief. All right. So there's a big difference between understanding it and believing it. So one of my missions in this podcast is to get you to believe it, to get you practicing to believe it at its fullest extent, because maybe you've been practicing some version of scarcity. All right. And that there's some problems with that we're going to talk about. But I really want you to believe this all the way, that absolutely there is more than enough. So it really comes down to two opposing thoughts. When you talk about scarcity versus abundance, what we really mean is there are two opposing thoughts, two opposing beliefs, and they are these. You can already predict these. The one thought is there's not enough, and the other thought that's opposing it is there's plenty, right? So scarcity says there's not enough. Abundance says, oh my gosh, there is more than enough. There is plenty. There's so much. There is so much. And the thing is, there are less extreme versions of there's not enough. There are less extreme versions that we might be saying to ourselves, that we might be believing, that are still problematic. So some examples may include, I'm not sure if there's enough. I'm not sure this can last. I'm worried the money may run out. I hope it doesn't run out. I'm even a little worried or a little bit afraid. I'm afraid it may come to an end. How long can this last? All of the things. Have you ever heard someone in kind of retirement age, and I've heard this occasionally, think about people in their mid 70s, 80s. Have you ever heard them say the comment, "Oh my gosh, my mission is to just make sure my money doesn't run out"? Now, I get it. Like I get someone saying that. I get the reasons why they would say that, but we just need to be cognizant of the things we're telling ourselves about money. And is there even a slight hint of scarcity in our thoughts and beliefs around money? Or are we all in on abundance? So the reason why this is a problem, the reason why it's a problem to have scarcity in any version of scarcity, right? Whether it's full on, there's not enough, or even small little hints of it. The reason why it's a problem is because feelings come from thoughts. All right, so that's just the deal. That's just how the brain works. That's how we're wired up. How we feel is based on how we think. And so when we're thinking any version of there's not enough, how that makes us feel is stressed. And just to make this point that feelings come from thoughts, I want you to think about what's a hobby that you really enjoy, all right? What's something that you just love to do? Is it hiking? Is it walking? Is it running? For me, it's riding my bike. Is it fishing? Is it golf? Is it knitting? Anything like that. Like, what is your hobby? And how you feel about your hobby is different than some other people, the way other people feel about that hobby. All right, so I am passionate about riding my bike. I rode my bike this morning, went on a beautiful bike ride. But some people don't love to ride their bike the way I love to ride my bike. People who are really into fishing, love to fish. Not everyone loves to fish. Not everyone loves to knit. So we know that there are different things going on in these different people's brains. And what's different is how we're thinking about that certain thing. So the way I think about biking is different than other people think about biking. If you're into knitting, the way you think about knitting is different than how I think about knitting, right? Which then leads to us feeling different things about those different hobbies, all right? So hopefully this point is being made. I love to ride my bike. I don't love to knit. You might love to knit, and maybe you're not into bike riding. That's all good. And all that means is we have different thoughts about the very same thing. So check it out. We have the ability to choose our thoughts around money. So it's so interesting that we may be choosing the thought, there's not enough, which then leads to us feeling stressful. All right, so just like the thought I have around my bike riding, my thought is I love to ride my bike, which makes me feel love and adoration toward bike riding. The thought there's not enough is going to make us feel stressful. And I want you to think about, if you're feeling stressed about money, what is it that you do? And also, what is it that you don't do when you are feeling stressed? Like, think about any human being feeling stressed. What are the actions that they're taking? What are the things that they're not doing? Well, the things that they're doing are they stress even more. Like, stressed people who feel stressed also stress. What's funny about that word is that it can be both a noun and a verb. All right, so someone can feel stress, so it can be a feeling and also an action. They can stress. So when someone feels stressed, they're going to stress out even more. They're going to look for more reasons to be stressed. They're going to do things like maybe overeat or overdrink or oversleep or even overexercise or overwork. Totally burn themselves out, and they're probably doing things and not doing things that are not beneficial. So they're probably not like going full on with really great, authentic, organic engagement with their clients. They're probably not thinking creatively about their business. They're probably not brainstorming and thinking constructively. They're probably not really taking care of themselves, right? So there's a lot of things also that they're not doing when someone feels stressed. So when you feel stressed, there are things that you do and things that you don't do, all that lead to things that ain't so good, all right? So that's why it's a problem. So the problem, it starts with the thought there's not enough, or any version of that makes us feel stressed about money. Then it ends up with us taking actions and inactions, which don't produce a result that would lead us to have more abundance, all right? So the result is there's not enough. So the thought that we start with of there's not enough leads to result of there's not enough. Isn't that funny? Isn't that ironic? All right, so we create the problem ourselves, all right? So the problem is us and how we're thinking about it. So it gets interesting to think about, where does this thought even come from? This thought of there's not enough, right? We're smart people. We're positive people. We're constructive people. We're aware people. We love to take care of our clients. We've created some abundance in our life. We've created cool things. So so we have this version of this thought, there's not enough. Like, where's that even coming from? So what I would argue, and as I've studied this, what I know is that it's a really old thought. All right, so that thought is super old, all right? And I would argue it goes back generations. And the thing about money and how we think about money is it's super influenced by our parents. It's super influenced by the environment that we grew up in. So maybe you grew up in an environment where literally there wasn't a lot, or maybe actually there was a lot, but there was still some thinking that was there, that was scarcity influenced, right? That was scarcity related. Maybe you had an environment like that. So where does that all come from? What I would argue is that a lot of it comes from the Depression. So depending on your age, your grandparents, your great-grandparents were living during that time, and they were super influenced by the Depression, right? Especially if they were kids during that time. Like, imagine being a kid during the Depression and you're watching your parents go through this really hard time. And that was pretty intense, right? So the result of that is some pretty intense thoughts and beliefs that came out of that don't necessarily serve us today. But it's super interesting to look at the behavior that came out of that thinking, all right? I'll give you a couple examples from my family. I'm guessing you have examples too as you think back about your people, like your grandparents' age or great-grandparents' age. So my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, when she passed away many years ago, but when she passed away, what the family found in her little apartment was money that was sewn into the bottom of her curtains, right? So at the base of her curtains, she had sewn like $100 bills into the base, worried that money may run out someday. She clearly wasn't confident about having that money in the bank. And I think that was really influenced by the Depression. So isn't that interesting? Isn't that fascinating that someone would take an action like that because they were so worried that money would run out? There's another person in my family that used to keep a $20 bill stuffed away in a dresser drawer. And I asked once, why do you keep that money stashed away? And the response was, well, you never know, right? You never know. Now, all respect, right? I get it. That's and it's some safe thinking and that made that produced maybe a slight feeling of security, but really, like, isn't that fascinating? Like $20 stashed away in the dresser drawer. Isn't that interesting as an action to take to try to create some feeling of security? And again, what I would argue is that's just like an old thing, right? That's just old thinking. And so if you have people in your family that were doing those things, all respect to them, that's just how they were taught. They probably grew up in an environment where there was some scarce thinking and no fault of theirs. They just kind of absorbed those thoughts and you don't really think otherwise, right? You don't consider that there may be other options, some different ways to think, but there you are, just kind of stuck with that thinking, all right? So, so when you choose the belief that there's not enough or some variation of that belief, that's going to be the result, all right? So when you believe there's not enough, that will ultimately lead to a result of you seeing and feeling and believing that there's not enough, right? Because you're doing all those actions that we talked about before. So what's super important, guys, this is a big deal, is for you to question everything, all right? So question everything as it relates to what you were taught about money. And they may be things that you were directly taught Like maybe you were sat down as a kid and whomever it was, your parents, your grandparents, someone else whoever raised you may have said to you, okay, here's some lessons around money. And maybe also it wasn't so much direct, it was indirect. One of my favorite lines from my friend Dave Dornan is more things are caught than taught, right? More things are caught than taught for sure as it relates to money. Like you're growing up in a certain environment, you're catching all these thoughts, right? You're catching all these beliefs, even though they're not said to you directly. So the thing about those things that we were taught is that some of those are effective, some of those are not. Some of those things do serve us, some of those things do not serve us. Some of those things are true, some of those things are not true at all. So like one that makes me laugh, an example that makes me laugh is the old, well, money doesn't grow on trees. Just remember, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, you know what's funny about that? It does. It actually does. Like money is made out of paper. And last time I checked, paper comes from trees. Isn't that interesting? So that's not even true, right? It actually does kind of grow on trees. It's a part of a tree. So bottom line, guys, we just have to question everything. So that's one of the exercises that we did in this month-long workshop is we downloaded what we were taught. We looked at those and we chose the ones that were really effective, that were helpful, that do serve us, that were like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was taught that. Thank goodness, whether it was a direct lesson or an indirect lesson, this person, this environment, this situation, this circumstance, it taught me some really, really good lessons around money. And then there are those things you're like, oh my gosh, that's awful. Like, I can't believe that that's a thing I was taught. That's not true. That's not effective. I'm going to stop believing that. All right. All respect to the person or the environment that taught you that thing. You have the ability to stop believing that. Okay. So let's talk about now this thought of there's not enough. All right. So let's challenge that. Let's push on that. Right. And let's really consider. All right. It's so more than just at a super high level, very intellectual level. Let's really push back on that. Let's question this thought, there's not enough. It's like, really? There's not enough? I want you to consider, just in the real estate business, right? This podcast is for all my real estate friends. So just in the real estate business and just looking at the commission dollars that are generated by transactions in the United States. What's fun about this podcast is that people listen from literally all over the world, which still, by the way, blows my mind. But if we just look in the United States, this year, did you know that commissions will approach $90 billion with a B? The commission dollars generated from transactions this year will approach $90 billion with a B. What I want you to do, as long as you're not driving, and maybe if you are driving, do this later. What I want you to do, I want you to write down 90 billion. And I don't want you to write down 90 and then start to spell billion. Don't start to spell BILL, right? What I want you to do is put all the zeros. I want you to write down 90 billion. Like, just try it. And what I guess is going to happen, what's likely, is that you're going to accidentally write 90 million. And you're gonna look at it and be like, dang, that's a lot. But then you'll be like, oh, whoa, time out. I missed 3 zeros. There's 3 more zeros I have to put on there. Write down $90 billion. And you're gonna look at that and you're gonna be like, dang, that's a lot of zeros. Did you know that 1/10,000th, which apparently is hard to say, 1/10,000th of 90 billion is 9 million? Right? So 1/10,000th of 90 billion is 9 million. So 1/100,000th of 90 billion is 900,000. I think a lot of us would say that's a pretty darn good year doing 900,000. So 1/100,000th of all the income that's generated through commissions in a year is still 900 G's. So the bottom line, guys, there's a lot, right? There is a lot. So here's a metaphor I love. Pretend that you and I are on we're on a life raft, all right? And hang with me. You're like, whoa, this isn't so fun. You said this was fun. This isn't fun. Just hang with me, all right? So pretend you and I are on a life raft. And that life raft, luckily, it had a bottle of water on that life raft. Now, if we're in the ocean, we're going to have to ration that water, right? So you and I are going to think through, and we're going to be fair about it, how we're going to ration out that water. We're going to take an educated guess as to how long we may be on that raft until we get rescued, and we're going to think about how much water is in the bottle. We're going to ration that out, right? So we're going to have actually some scarcity thinking to ensure that we make it, right? To ensure that the water doesn't run out, because there isn't enough, right? There isn't enough to last us weeks and weeks and weeks. So we're forced into scarcity thinking, like we have to ration it. But here's the thing about this world of real estate that we're in. Using this metaphor, if we're on a life raft, we're not on the ocean, we're on a lake. All right, we are floating on fresh water. And imagine we're floating on fresh water and we're sitting there going, okay, or maybe I'm sitting there saying, okay, so we only got this one bottle of water. We're going to have to really ration this out. Okay, so who knows how long we may be out there. We can only just take little sips, a couple sips a day is all I'm thinking. And you're probably going to look at me and be like, dude, there's water like right here. Like you just have to like reach over into the lake and kind of scoop up some water. We can refill the bottle. And of course, let's pretend it's clean water in the lake, right? And so that's the deal. I mean, that is the deal today. We're on this boat floating in fresh water. Like all we got to do is just reach down and just scoop it up. Like that's all we have to do. Like there's more than enough there. There's 90 billion gallons of water in this lake that we're floating on. You just have to reach down and just scoop it up, all right? So one of the common traits I see in the realtors that I interact with who have a really fulfilling business, and guys, understand that for me, that this is well over 1,000 people that I know really well. Like this is way over 1,000 people. Realtors through the years, today, et cetera, that I've interacted with, that I've got to know, that I've seen the inside of their business. Like I know them really well. Like it's well over 1,000 people is kind of my sample size on this. What I see among the common traits, and there are only a few common traits among those that are really fulfilled in their business. One of the common traits they have is an investment mindset. They have an investment mindset versus an expense mindset. So the way they think about their marketing, the way they think about the money that they put into connecting with their clients and building up their business and building out their systems around hiring assistants, all the things, they have an investment mindset to that as opposed to an expense. So they do not view their marketing as an expense. They view it as an investment. What they say is, I know when I invest into my business, I get more than that money back. I get a return on that investment. I'm so willing to invest because I know I get a return. Actually, I love to invest in my business because of the return it creates versus those that do not have a fulfilling business at all. One of the common traits for sure is an expense mindset where it's like hoarding. It's like, no way am I going to put money into my business because I'm not sure the money's going to run out. There's no way. I have to hang on to every dollar I have. And there's a massive mindset difference there and a big shift that needs to take place, all right? And I'm going to give you some new thoughts and new beliefs here in a minute. And also, please know, I'm not suggesting that you be dumb with your money, right? That you just start like spending it frivolously. That's apparently hard to say too, and just kind of throwing it around with no thought at all, right? I'm not suggesting that, right? I'm suggesting that you be really smart with your money, but I'm suggesting that you take on an investment mindset. Okay, so here are some new things to believe. Some new things to believe versus there's not enough. And all these things, by the way, are true. What's really important about any new belief that you choose to try on, that you choose to practice, it's got to be true, right? So this is not like the old fake it till you make it. I'm not a fan of that. What I am a fan of is picking beliefs that are actually true. And guess what? That belief there's not enough, it's not true, right? We've pushed back on that quite a bit. It's just not true, all right? So we're going to stop believing things that aren't true. It's not true. There's not enough isn't true. Here's some things that are true that I want you to start practicing, that I want you to start believing, and these are going to make a huge difference. How about let's start with this? And you may want to write all these down. You may want to start with, there's more than enough, right? There is more than enough. I mean, let's just start with that, just high level. You know what? There's more than enough. We talked about the 90 billion example. there's more than enough. How about this one? My income is an echo of value. My income is an echo of value. So the more value that I put out, the more like goodwill that I create, if I'm just doing that time after time after time in a really effective way, in a really big way, in my own authentic way, I know it's going to come back. Like income is going to come back to me. And it starts with me just putting out a ton of value. And sometimes it comes back directly. Sometimes it comes back indirectly, right? And so sometimes we have to wait a little bit for it to come back. Sometimes it comes back in ways that maybe we didn't expect, but sometimes it comes back right away and very directly. It doesn't matter. Just put out a ton of value. And wouldn't that be awesome for the world anyway, right? For all of us to receive even more of your value. So take on that thought. My income is an echo of value. How about this one? The more abundance I create, the better off the world is. Or you could also say the more value I create. The more value I create, the better off the world is. And that's why it's so cool for you to go create even more income, even more wealth, even more abundance. That's why I celebrate that and why everyone else celebrates that, because all that means is that the world got better off, right? Aren't we all better if you put even more value, even more goodwill, even more like abundance and awesomeness into the world? Aren't we all better off if you do that? So please do that, all right? So take on that thought. The more value I create, the better off the world is. And when I say world, it could be the world, like literally, like globally, literally, or it could be your immediate world, like the people that immediately surround you. So your family, your friends, if you have staff, your staff, your clients, for sure, right? Everyone is way better off based on the more value that you create. How about this one? I know how to invest, and I know I'll get a return. All right, you do know how to invest. You know the smart things to do with your money as it relates to your business, and you know you're going to get a return. All you got to do is just do it. But it starts with that belief. I know how to invest, and I know that I'll get a return. Like if you and I were sitting at lunch, and I just casually said to you, "Yeah, so tell me, like, what are the things that are the best investments for you? Like when you think about your money, your time, your energy, like what do you think makes the best return for you in any of those investments?" Like you're going to have an answer. Like you will definitely have an answer. You won't hem and haw for too long related to that, right? Like you're going to have an answer. So you do know how to invest. I know how to invest. I know I'll get a return. And so when you take on any of those thoughts that I mentioned, hopefully you wrote down, how do you then feel knowing that thoughts produce your feelings? So again, the thought there's not enough produces stress. Well, what do these thoughts create? They create things like confidence, like certainty, like empowered. How about this as a feeling? Open, right? That's a pretty amazing feeling as it relates to money and wealth and abundance. Like if you feel open, that's pretty cool. How about willing? Willing to experiment, willing to test, willing to put yourself out there. Those are all way better feelings than stressed. Wouldn't you agree? And wouldn't you agree that when you feel those things, you're going to be doing things that will create even more? All right. So when you take on the thought, you know what, there's more than enough. What do you create? More than enough, right? Because you're going to feel confident, certain, empowered, open, willing, all the things, right? All the things. So guys, to wrap this up, stop choosing to believe there's not enough or any variation of that. Just stop choosing that thought, stop choosing that belief, start practicing these way, way better beliefs so that the world gets better. I mean, please, like speaking selfishly, I want you to do that so that the world gets better. We're all going to be better off when you do that. All right, guys, that is episode number 64. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much for engaging. As always, what you need to do next is go check out alphastateclass.com. The money workshop sits right there. So if you want to take this further, that's all you got to do. Go get signed up and enroll. You get access to that class plus all kinds of other great things. So guys, that's it. Thanks so much for engaging with this podcast. It means the world to me. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, enjoy life on the leading edge. Take care.